My name is Greg Munson. I'm with Team Llama Motors. I'm also the executive producer and co-creator of BattleBots. And welcome to the RoboCast. Thanks for listening.
Hello everyone, my name is Samuel at 64. I'm joined alongside Steve the AmericanKilljoy and World of Woodrow. You are listening to the RoboCast, and joining us today is BattleBots co-founder Greg Munson. Greg.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Pretty good.
Can't complain.
I'm enjoying the week off from covering, to be honest. It's been quite nice to have that little in-season break.
The 2-week break.
Yeah, it's been nice to look at something else for. Well, not that don't miss BattleBots. It's just nice to be able to kind of take a break, kind of take it in.
No, you get pummeled.
Reflect.
You get pummeled by the onslaught, and then you need a breather, and then you come back. Yes, I understand very much.
Absolutely. Before we get into the questions and interviews as we kind of planned it, I do want to remind our listeners once again that this podcast is sponsored by Robots Ruin My Life, the wonderful people over there. And we've actually seen quite a few people making orders from them as well. I've seen a few people who've kind of tagged us and said, "Hey, I used your code." So amazing stuff. Thank you for using our code. Thank you for supporting the wonderful people over there.
What does Robots Ruin My Life do?
They sell merch like this. You can see it on the camera. This is a beautiful Hawaiian shirt with Ripperoni and Starchild all over it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a collaborative effort between the Omega team and the Pain Train team and the
for merch sales.
P1
nice.
Technically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Across all those. And as always, you can use our code RoboCast at checkout for 25% off your order. It's a good deal. Go and give them all your money because they deserve it. They deserve it. First of all, Greg, before we kind of start with the early years, how have you found this season up to now? I mean, it's been quite chaotic. There's been a lot of surprises emerging from the woodwork. I think I mentioned Ripperoni.
And you haven't seen nothing yet.
I know this is what I mean. It's kind of.
And I was only there week one. I know that the boys have been very good that went with me, David and Jevin. They've been very good at not spoiling anything to me. So it's been quite a run so far.
It's a fantastic season. A season where we really have dialed in a great format for the robots to compete within in terms of guaranteed 4 fight card qualifying fights. Mm-hmm. Check out your resume. Top 32 make it into the bracket and on from there. And then the rest go to Sin City Slugfest. Even some in the 32 bracket will make it into Sin City Slugfest, which will appear later in the year. But it worked out great. The fights were amazing. Like you said, we had many, many surprises, and there's some more surprises to come. Mm-hmm. And the new rules we formatted and worked with the builders on over the break from the last season, I think for the most part have worked spectacularly. The movement rule, the no stuck stuff, the revised judges criteria, the match steward, all that stuff has worked great. The appeals, super happy about all that. So I think so far so good.
I think a lot of people.
And we know how it ends, so it's great.
Well, it ends with someone lifting the trophy. I think one thing that kind of the teams that we've spoken to this season certainly have said is knowing the schedule has been a massive game changer for them. It's just been like a nice sort of, you watch Premier League football and you know who you're playing next week because it gives you a chance to kind of prepare for each opponent. I think that's a really cool sport element that's been added to BattleBots.
It's huge because the way we used to do it is, we'd have a set of like 2.5 fight cards per shooting day. And then you get you almost go through half the field of like the 50 or 60 or whatever it is in that full day of 2.5 fight cards. And then you have to assess, okay, now who should fight who based on who they won or who they lost to. And by the time the shoot day is over and you get to that process, it's like 2 a.m. So the poor robot builders are sitting there waiting on Discord for a message. And like, oh my God, I have to fight them. And then, tomorrow.
I don't have a setup for that yet.
So yeah, 100%. And it just makes strategy better. They can strategize about this. They can figure all their configurations beforehand.
It's got to make filming go faster.
Plan out little gamesmanship things they're going to do from the get-go. It's great.
Yeah,
completely agree. I think it's been a really big revelation. So
and that's what I mean by fitting all that stuff within the new format. It's just such a good new format. We must credit Aaron Catling in a very big way for helping to come up with.
Absolutely. Well, let's start off with Jevon
has appeared.
Suddenly appeared.
He is full up on the foods. And
how was your dinner?
Ready to
it
go.
was delicious. I would have appreciated my dinner more had I not had to rush it. But there we are.
You got plenty more days
shoveled
to
in by the
Brilliant. We're going to start off with the time before BattleBots. Ooh,
very
mythical. I know the before years.
Everything that except for the book forgot.
Well,
what was life like before? before
any robot combat?
I mean,
right?
we are going to talk a little bit about that. To be fair, so obviously you have kind of mentioned, a lot of the stuff we are going to cover, is covered in this thing, which is Gearheads by.
Mine's in the mail. I don't know where mine went. I had one.
You planned ahead.
I rebought it knowing I didn't have it. I must have lost it in a move. But it's on its way.
Give Jeff Bezos a ring. I'm sure he'll ship it over tomorrow.
I'm so far though. I'm like the farthest possible from Seattle. Anyway,
we're going to start with even before BattleBots. Growing up, were you kind of mechanically minded? Was it were you engineering based when you were growing up?
I mean, so Trey and I are cousins. We don't have brothers, so our moms put us together during the summers and school breaks and whatnot. He was in Los Angeles, Southern California. I was in Northern California. So he'd either come up with me or I'd go down with him. We had a third cousin, Gar, who was also in a similar situation. So we were all together, and we were called the Terrible Trio because we all would always get in trouble. And the kind of trouble we got into was usually making something and then breaking something, right?
Amazing.
So we weren't engineers by any sense of the word, but we were certainly tinkerers and goofer offers in the sense that we would, do something to an Estes rocket that just shouldn't be done, and then maybe cause a little problem and get in trouble. And then, we do things to our model airplanes and to our Cox remote control cars and Trey's remote control boat. And we'd always film it, of course, too, because filmmaking was a big part of our growing up. So yeah, that would be the most engineering you'd probably get out of me. Trey maybe a little bit more. But we're certainly fooling around with stuff, making it and breaking it. But it was the high school buddies of mine, Peter Abramson, the Bot Whisperer, Mark Satrakian, the Super Genius, go to high school with those guys. And when I meet those guys, I met Pete in 8th grade, 7th grade, met Mark in high school. It takes it to an entirely new level. I thought I was cool making stop motion animation movies with Lego, cotton to make the explosions happen. And, the little bombs I would make in the backyard blowing up Lego stuff. No, Mark's Satrakian so much better.
No, he is a mastermind for sure.
Yeah. So I learned a lot. And, and I had I lived on a cul-de-sac. If you remember the TV show Knots Landing, there was always that helicopter shot where it showed the circle. Mm-hmm. The street ends in a circle. And I lived on one of those. Perfect place. End of the street, circle, cars don't really go up there, to blow stuff up. So the neighbor.
I'm noticing a big theme here. It's just destroying things.
Yeah, we're destroying our Legos. We're destroying our plastic models. We would, from my mom's bedroom, second story bedroom, to the neighbor's mailbox across the big circle, we would put fishing line, and we would, build these Lego trams to shoot them down the line, and they'd blow up. Hopefully, if they would blow up halfway, down the line in the middle of the cul-de-sac. Sometimes they blow up right into the neighbor's mailbox.
Oh. Wouldn't be.
We would do all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
that's amazing.
And so when Mark Thorpe invented Robot Wars, and that was the first showing in San Francisco, and Mark Satrakian pages me, and I go to a payphone, I have to call him, and he says, there's all this noise, and he says, I got you 2 tickets to this thing, Fort Mason Center, be there soon, you'll love it, click. So I had to go. But when I walk into this building, and I smell this weird smell, and I see the black back of these bleachers. I can't see any robot fighting because it's behind the bleachers, but I smell it and I hear it, and I walk around and I see it, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of two things. It was very familiar because of the history we've had breaking stuff and making stuff, and very just completely bizarre and unique. Like I've never seen this before, like the complete opposite, because it's such like, who thinks of fighting robots together? Mark Thorpe did. And it's one of these things where your eyes just go like, whoa, you could do this, and so that was the spark, that started it all, really.
Spark that lit the flame. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny. We had a load of questions written down, and that's answered 3 of them in one go. Well done, Greg. Very good time saving. Yeah. I like that. Good, okay. So obviously it was Mark that drew you to Robot Wars originally. How did he hear about it? Well, obviously he must have heard it from somewhere.
Yeah, so Mark worked at ILM with Mark Thorpe. Mark's a Satrakian worked with Mark Thorpe, right. Collaboratively at ILM. Mark got hired right out of high school because he was such a fantastic sculptor and model builder and whatnot. They saw his resume, they saw his work, and they said, "You're hired, kid." So anyway, maybe it was the first year of college. I forget the details, but Mark meets Mark. Mark Thorpe is, the story about the tank and the vacuum cleaner and the chainsaw, which you guys have probably heard a million times. Mm-hmm. He has this light bulb that goes off in his head that, if I can make a remote control tank into a chainsaw wielding tank, my friends who I work with at ILM and people from all over the world could do the same thing, and we could have a sport, we could have a fight. And he invented Robot Wars. Mark Thorpe being one of the first people to come, of course. Peter Abramson came as well, who was also into special effects at that time. And Will Wright, Michael Winner, all the old school, Scott LaValle, all the old school people were there. And I just came as a spectator because of Mark's Satrakian. But then honestly, I thought it was cool, but I kind of dropped it because at that point I'm a musician and I'm just in bands and I'm having fun that way. And Peter Abramson calls months before Robot Wars 2 in '95, and he says, "What are you going to build?" Because Pete and I built stuff all the time when we were in high school. Now we're older. And I'm like, build? What do you mean? Build for Robot Wars number 2. What are you going to build? I'm like, I don't know. Oh, should I build something? Yeah, you should build something. So we hang up the phone, and I'm with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, Tina, and her buddy, Bob, who works at a bar. And the 3 of us are just brainstorming on all the goofy robot ideas. And, everyone's done that. Everyone who watches any of these robot fighting shows, and they haven't had any experience. The first thing they do, if they really dig it, is they go like, what if we built one with this? What if we built one with that? Oh, yeah. What if we did this? What if we did that?
I still do that.
So we did that all night. Exactly. And then I went to take I lived in a live workspace, right? Lofts, big. You get a big chunk of real estate, but nothing in it. You have to build everything yourself, and your neighbor has the same. Your neighbor has the same. And it's a 3-story building. It's in Oakland. I take my garbage out. Gage Cauchois is taking his garbage out. And I say, Gage, do you know about Robot Wars? He's like, is that thing I saw on TV? Because they did a TV that all us nerds watched Next Step, which there was no real good cable shows back then, or certainly no streaming back then. But there was this local news show called Next Step, where the news reporter guys got an extra little half an hour, like on a Sunday, to talk about tech stuff, right? And we loved that show. And they did Robot Wars on it. And Gage saw it through that. And there at the trash can, we're like, let's form a team. Let's do it. And Gage is like, yes. So we and Gage, of course, is the builder of Law Machine, Vlad the Impaler. And so Gladiator. Gage and I formed a team, Gladiator. Yeah. We partnered up, formed a team, and very quickly Trey got involved because Trey's an amazing, remote control driver. And I've known that since he was a kid with the Cox stuff, remote control cars and whatnot. And he's a helicopter pilot back then. So he had this uncanny ability to pilot things. And he could help pay for it as well. His mom helped us. And actually Paul McCready wound up helping us, the famous engineer guy who made the solar powered airplane that crossed the Atlantic. Because they were family friends. He gave us $600.
Yeah.
So anyway, there was this bit of a not a fight, I would say, but a conversation about what the hell we could build. And Trey and I went to this thing called the shopping cart races, which is another one of these. What the hell is that? Yeah. Guys, get a shopping cart and you can do anything you want with it and you race it. So people made dragsters, people made bicycles on a shopping cart. People just made just a remote control shopping cart, and they didn't care about it because what they cared about was the mini marshmallow shooting pneumatic machine gun that they added to it as a the audience. Best. I mean, someone needs to resurrect that because that was the best thing ever.
It sounds similar to like other like Power Wheels and hacky racing.
I was going to say,
it sounds very
without
similar.
The marshmallow
it was the same as it was. Power Tool Races was there around the same time as well, but shopping cart races was my fave. But it was in a boatyard, and you couldn't find the place. It was in the secret little shop in a boatyard. And as we're walking through this, we see these ginormous propellers from the back of boats, and Trey's like, that's what we're going to build. We're going to build a propeller, and it's going to spin around and launch people up in the air. Cool. Awesome. So we go back to Gage, and Gage, being the real engineer, the math equations are going off in his head, and he's like, no, we're not going to do that. It's way too complicated. Because back then, we didn't have the crazy technology you got now. So he says, we're just going to build a wedge. Let's be simple. What's what we're going to do? So, all right, whatever. And we built La Machine, and the rest is history. We went in there as a middleweight in Robot Wars 95, and we thought we were the worst team there. We're totally embarrassed. The UC Berkeley team was pitted next to us, and they had this thing with gas motors and all kinds of complexities. Mark Satrakian built the second version of the Master. Like, oh God. Thor was there, this hydraulic hammer that still to this day probably could be competitive. I mean, it was amazing. And we're just like, we suck. What are we doing here? It's total imposter syndrome. But with the very first fight, we won it in 20 seconds. The wedge worked. It was the right angle, and we didn't have a speed controller. We couldn't afford one. We just used Bosch relays from your window going up and down, or it was the windshield wipers, I forget. And it was just basically hardwired into this little on-off brain for the tank drive motors. We had Trey was a great driver. And the little La Machine worked great, and we won the whole damn middleweight competition really easily. Embarrassed to say, and the audience loved it because it was just the ugliest, stupid machine ever. And they would chant La Machine, which is this great little 3-syllable musical thing. So they really got into that, and so we were like, "Oh, great, man! We're like rock stars." We ate it up, and then. The heavyweight melee was about to happen, where all the big boys now fight. And the audience was screaming for La Machine to come in, a middleweight. And I was in the audience. Trey got the robot ready. He was bringing in. He's looking for me. He's like, "What? Get over here. Come on. We got to do it." Okay. So we do it, and we won that. We beat Thor. We beat Scott LaValle's robot. And that was great. So we had a great time. And now we're fully hooked. Thank you, Peter, for hooking us. And we really, really, really want to help Mark Thorpe build this thing into the next level. So we helped him improve the arena, all the cool traps he had, working with Trey and I and Scott LaValle. So at Scott's house, Scott set up this whole thing to build the traps and make them better. And Trey was a big part of making that happen. We made the Robot Wars website. We made brochures for Mark. And then the funnest thing we did was we made this video that we are going to send to David Letterman, because we thought if we can get this on David Letterman, not the Tonight Show, David Letterman, because he likes stupid human tricks. He's done dangerous toys, stupid pet his up his alley. He'll dig it. And so we made this really funny video where the things we did with La Machine in the video, you could never, ever do
now.
Instant cancellation.
No, just danger, 9/11 stuff. We took it across the Bay Bridge. We took it through the toll booth on the Bay Bridge. And this thing is like, you don't know what it is. And the
no, of course not. Big mystery
people
box.
like, oh, they played right along with us. And we're stopping traffic to get our shot. No, can you do it again? Roll it in.
Oh,
and there's cars back there. Get the hell out of the way.
Yeah.
We took it to the airport and they let us bring it to the tarmac and run it under the wheel chuck for Southwest Airlines, the 727.
Wow, you really couldn't do that now.
Shooting this thing, Trey's driving it into the wheel. It's loud as, it's crazy. And Southwest didn't give a shit. They're just like,
this is cool.
Can you imagine that now?
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, you wouldn't be able to get through airport security.
No.
I mean, one of the questions I've written down is, is there a part of you that misses like all the simplicity and the innocence of the time, if you like?
Exactly. Yeah, it was pre 9/11, so it was exactly that. People just thought there's these, some goofy young guys wanting to make a video. Well, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, of
it was
course,
like the golden era.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So we don't get it on David Letterman, unfortunately, and of course, Robot Wars goes into gearheads mode.
We know the bits and pieces of that. It's that's pretty well documented on how
if
on
you
how
want
that
the
all
full
fell
story,
out. There's no better place to learn that story and all the.
I'm sure.
It couldn't.
Bits and
I mean,
pieces.
Brad Stone researched the crap out of it. Interviewed everybody.
It's a legal drama. You could literally film a legal drama if you wanted to.
If the sport ever got really, really popular worldwide, maybe they'll make into a movie someday. But it could be. It is. It's like Tucker. It's like the movie Tucker.
Yeah, perfect example. Where big company tries to stomp out the little guy.
So that's what happened to Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, as you know, in Gearheads, Trey attempts to financially help and legally help Mark beat the lawsuit, but it goes on and on and on and on and on and takes money, and it got to a point where 2 years later, Robot Wars is not happening. Mark is struggling to keep the lawsuit just keeps evolving and Trey reaches a point where it's like, you know what, if the next move is to just do this ourselves, because Mark's not going to be able to emerge out of this with the Robot Wars brand. And pretty sure Mark gave us his blessing, and we did BattleBots 99. This is 99 in Long Beach. And at the moment it dawned on us where we should really just do it ourselves. We love making these videos and we wanted to get exposure. So we called up those next step guys. The show had gone away, unfortunately, but the KPIX people, local TV people, were still gung-ho to film some kids, breaking stuff. So we went under the freeway where we would usually test the robot, and we got all the local builders. We got Scott LaValle, we got the Nelsons, Steve Nelson, his dad was Slam. We got Stephen Felk, I think, and Jim Smitowski. And under the freeway, we fought stuff, and they filmed it. They put it on TV, and everyone came back over to Trey's house, and I think maybe even Pete was there, and maybe Dan Danknick was even there too. Anyway, I forget exactly who, but I just want to give credit to the people who were there.
Cool.
But we all said, "You got to do it yourself, man." So Trey said, "Okay, we'll do it." Greg, you're gonna do it with me? I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do it with you." And then we came up with the name BattleBots, and then we did our Long Beach show.
Who came up with the name?
Started the whole TV thing.
Who came up with the name?
The name was interesting. So I remember exactly how that happened. I'm in my warehouse building on the phone. I have a cell phone now.
One of those little extended
Going up in the world.
Talking to Trey and Colleen, his wife, and we're trying to come up with names. You've done it before. Robo something. Bought something.
We wouldn't know anything about that.
Exactly. So you just come up with every little cut up word for robots and battling and fighting, and you're trying to stick them all together. Colleen says, "What about battle droids?" And me being a Star Wars nerd said, "Oh no, we can't call it battle droids because episode 1 is about to come out in like 3 months from now, and they've already trademarked that name. They've actually already got a web. I search all the Star Wars news all the time back then. The battle droids is off the table, and I say, how about BattleBots, because bots was one of those words we had been goofing around with, and we all stopped. Let's think on that. And then we talked about a few more names, and then talked the next morning and said, I think it's BattleBots. And we said, yeah, that's pretty good, right? Yeah. So we all came up with it.
And thus BattleBots was born.
Yeah.
Thus it was.
Steve, I believe this is where I hand over from the before times to yourself and Comedy Central.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Comedy Central, and then I guess I have a question here about the pay-per-view events. That's a lighter question. So, I mean, before BattleBots comes to late night TV, it's a pay-per-view event. So can you tell us whatever happened to Y2K2? And if there's a place where he disappeared to? What was the idea behind something like that? Instead of having like a physical host, have you had physical host, you had commentators there, commentating the event. But what was the idea of having like a robotic
yeah. Well, one of the guys who competed in, I believe, Robot Wars towards the end of it, I think 98 or something, was Vic Lang. Amazing engineer, an amazing pioneer in the world of MIDI controlled robotics, right? So, and he built this thing called Y2K2, and he kept telling us about it. He probably even demoed it for us, and he had this giant keyboard, right? You'd play it, and it was this round thing that he constructed himself, something almost like Prince would have. And then the robot, if you push C, the robot would go, push F, the robot would go, right? And he could play it. I think that's how it worked. Anyway, we knew about it, and when it came time to produce the pay-per-view, it was probably Trey, because Trey loved the thing. He said, we got to get Y2K2 to be one of the hosts, and we all thought that was a great idea, and thus that happened. Yeah,
very cool.
And I should say about the pay-per-view, so the Long Beach show, we did a cybercast. We did a stream, back then in '99, which is unheard of.
Way before his time.
We had friends.
Yeah,
we had friends who worked at ZD TV, which became Tech TV, which became G4.
Yeah.
So they were on the forefront of streaming. They knew all about it, and so they brought the infrastructure in. We streamed it. John Remar, Ref John, had a production company back called Innovation, and they were the production company, and we streamed it, and it got like it was either 100,000 or 400,000, or maybe it was 40,000. I don't remember. Let's say it was 400,000.
It's still pretty big numbers for sort of 1999 online content.
It was probably 40, but let's just pretend it was 400. Sure. It was a lot of people. It was a lot of people for whatever number it was back then, and anyway, two guys were sitting, I think, in the audience, and there was Lenny Stucker and his partner Rob Biner, and they had done fights, Friday night fights, for ESPN for years. They were the team that flies all over the country, does Friday night fights, and they have a real production company called, what was their production company called? The hell, I forget. Anyway, Lenny and Rob, so they hooked up with us and said, we're going to get you guys, we know the pay-per-view model because we do boxing, and we're going to make it happen for you. So they helped us do the deal with In Demand, and went to Las Vegas at the All-American Sports Park and did the pay-per-view, which did okay. They put it on just before the Super Bowl in kind of the holidays. So, it didn't get as much love as it should have, but it was fun making it. And, Lewis Johnson, who's one of the best, broadcast journalists on the planet. He does the Olympics. If you watch the Olympics, you'll always see Lewis Johnson do the track and field. He was great. He was so good. And Larry, I forget his name, was the, play-by-play, and then Dan Danknick was the color. Yes. And then Y2K2. Yeah. Anyway.
Super cool.
It was fun. It was good. Yeah. And then that became a pilot, right? Yes. That became a piece of tape.
Yeah.
That
something you could show.
We could show. So what happened was getting into Comedy Central.
Yeah, because that was going to be my next question. Like, what's it like shopping the show to networks now, and how do you land on Comedy Central? I'm sure there were other ideas, but why a comedy network? I guess BattleBots is silly enough, to be like, oh yeah, this would be just metal wheeled machines bashing into each other. It's comedy, right?
Yep. So, well, ZDTV, the hell was that company? So it became Tech TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Tech TV wanted it. Tech TV's like, we want to do it with you.
Yeah, it's a perfect fit. You would figure.
It's a perfect fit, except they were in like, I don't know, this number is going to be wrong, but a very minimal amount of households in terms of people who have cable and get Tech TVs. If cable's this big, Tech TV's this big, right?
It was a company with Ziff Davis. That was the company.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it would have been perfect. They're actually, a lot of people don't realize this, but Tech TV launched Ninja Warrior. They were the company that bought the Japanese show, showed it in America, got Americans, psyched on it and fired up on it, and created the Americans who thought it was so cool. NBC then had a stake in Tech TV, and NBC then produced Ninja Warrior, which now, big deal, big hit.
Oh, yeah. Huge.
So maybe that's the other origin in the parallel universe. Everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah,
BattleBots is on NBC, thriving to this day, right? But
Ninja Warrior Discovery.
There's two network executives who worked for the BBC and saw the success of Robot Wars, which of course bought a license from Mark Thorpe and his partner to do the show over there, over where you guys, well, these were, some of you on, and they got jobs in America. Bill Hillary and I forget the woman's name. She got on TLC and Bill Hillary got Comedy Central. So they knew about it, and when they kind of caught wind of it, and Lenny, I'm sure, helped get some of the word out because he was big to get us on TV. And we wanted to see a demo. So we brought Mark Satrakian's robot, the Mechadon, along with our pay-per-view tape and showed it to Debbie Liebling, who was the lady who greenlit and made South Park and all the big, hit shows from Comedy Central back in that day. She thought it was awesome. Bill Hillary, her boss, knew about it from, BBC and said, get it. Let's do it. So we got Comedy Central in the cable world is that. Tech TV is this.
Yeah.
Tech TV is like our brothers and sisters. They're down the street, San Francisco. Our friends work there, but this is that many households.
Yeah.
So you can't really say no to it, can you?
We debated it back and forth for weeks, and we went with Comedy Central.
Yeah.
And so we were. Go ahead.
No, go. I was going to say, with the Comedy Central, name. Now that you have that bid, were you worried about? Because I know that BattleBots, at least from what I remember, it had a late time slot. I know that maybe that would be. I don't know if that was a worry for you. Not being super prime time. Because I remember sometimes it was on at like 9 or 10.
We're going to be a big fish on Tech TV and a small fish on Comedy Central.
Okay.
But it panned out. It panned out great. We were the second or third highest rated premiere in Comedy Central's history. We were like the third best show. South Park, The Man Show, BattleBots. And it created, it was one of these things. So robot fighting is that, what the hell is that?
Right.
And the press and the TV people and people who watch TV never, they don't know about Robot Wars. They don't know about Mark Thorpe's thing at Fort Mason Center, and they certainly don't know about, American audiences don't know about Robot Wars that's going on right now.
It was very, it was very tricky.
So they're like, this is great.
Yeah.
So,
we were lucky enough in the Northeast to get it on PBS. Where they had licensed the show to show. I think they were showing. They started with series 2. We didn't even know series 1 was a thing over here. And we were lucky that I was lucky that WHYY in Philadelphia picked it up. I would have never known about Robot Wars, and my dad wouldn't have recorded it, and then I wouldn't have known about BattleBots. And then it snowballs, all of a sudden the public opens their eyes like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. And then, it's off to the races. And
Robot Wars, I think, got on Spike, and it got on PBS
eventually, and then TNN at one point, and then TV, and then it kind of found its way to Tech TV, and then
it's crazy, really, because
disappeared from there.
when BattleBots started, when it got rebooted, it started on Spike for us.
Spike.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
right.
nice
That's hilarious.
a lot of similarly
right.
minded people probably still there thinking like, oh, I remember that show. That'll fit nicely in our programming block. So
yeah. So it's on Comedy Central, and it's a hit. And pretty quickly, we got that Hasbro toy deal, Jack Pacific, the THQ video game, all that fun stuff. But when you really look at it, it only lasted 2 years on Comedy Central. It was 5 seasons. It was over almost 100 episodes.
It seems like so much longer. Maybe it's because I was younger and that time was stretched longer. I lived less time. That whole logarithmic experience of life. It seems like it was on TV for so much longer.
Yeah, it was such a concentrated time that time slowed down relative to.
I guess so.
Yeah,
time dilation.
Exactly. 2 big seasons shoots a year, May and November. We used to do, I think. Lots and lots and in 4 weight classes.
Yeah. Huge amount of turnout. Like, could you imagine that amount of turnout that you had back in the day now? If you had that, hundreds,
it would be death.
You could see the tears. Like, oh, this is the worst.
My wife back then was the casting coordinator, a casting producer, and she would deal with 500 entries, and just get them in and get all of them. She would get all of those fights queued up, get into the arena. We would do them in 11 minutes, turn back to front, 11 minutes, and we'd shoot that whole thing. And it was nutty. It was nutty, but it was fun. Nowadays, obviously, we take more time with it, and we only do 1 weight class. But back then it was wild, wild west.
When you think of it like boxing, everyone thinks like the big main events, the heavyweight events. It's got like that moniker where it's like, this is the big heavy title fight. Like we think like Tyson, and we think like George Foreman. You think all these really big boxers and stuff like that. I don't know if they were all heavyweights. You know what I mean? But like my boxing history of that whole age, that was kind of before me, where my dad would use his little sniffer box, and have everybody over, and they'd all watch the fights, and then Tyson would be 1 round and it would be over. But you'd watch all the undercard fights, and it would all be really interesting. Yeah. And I feel like BattleBots is a very interesting corollary between boxing and I feel like whenever I've tried to describe Robot Wars to people, I describe it as more of a wrestling. It's much more deep in it. Like it's much more story driven, and the characters of the show. And you're like, I mean, we still have that with BattleBots, but BattleBots is this really, dare I say, like really clean, well produced event. Of course, I'm sucking up now. Where it's got a real identity as a
one still on the air, one isn't
a professional sporting event. Where it's got this pedigree.
I would compare Robot Wars to a game show, whereas BattleBots is the sport.
Yes. Speaking,
that's by design. Yeah. I mean, we Trey and I built the robots. We competed in Robot Wars. We wanted to help Mark build it into a big giant sport. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We did it on our own. On Comedy Central, looking back, I love that show and all the funny stuff we did with it. And Mac and Bradley, the executive producers, made those hilarious skits. Carlos with the cat, and
so good.
Scott Valley as a psychopath, and it's just hilarious. But back then we were maybe a little more sensitive to, we got to make the robot engineers stars, because we were true believers, and still are, of kids got to look up not just to sports people, but they got to look up to engineers. I mean, there's no astronauts we're really looking up to these days like there were in the 60s.
Well, it was so
to
new,
build more engineers, little kids got to look up to engineers. And there probably wasn't enough of that on Comedy Central, and we wanted more of that, and we wanted it to have that true sports feel. And maybe some of Comedy Central would just throw the best fights at the screen and wouldn't really think of the arc so much. And so when we got the opportunity, when we got booted off the network because the ratings went down and they moved us around, and
I was going to say, you got the age-old movie around and time slot killed. I think you were put in a time slot. I can't remember exactly which one, but it was basically
Saturday,
a time slot. It was terrible. Just an awful spot.
And whatever it was, who knows? I mean, the fights, certainly we had a ton of wedges. The fights got a little bit. There was maybe 3 good ones out of 10. A lot of bots with no active weapons and just they fall apart and they're just boxes. So there was that. Plus, I think we're quickly moving into an era on TV where reality shows start to come up, and we're talking about one camera reality shows. Especially on Comedy Central, where they weren't the elaborate scripted things we see nowadays, but they were much more simple and cheaper. And so, got the boot. Anyway, Trey and I, lesson learned, we're like, from here on out, sport, builders are heroes.
Yes.
Let's find a partner to do it. And it took 12 years.
Honestly. Speaking of sports, before we get too far from the Comedy Central, what is it like hiring talent for the show? Because I know you wanted to go to the sport angle, so you hired people like Sean Salisbury and Tim Green, like big football stars at the time, and then you got comedian, very good, quick off the cuff Bill Dwyer. You got Randy and Jason Sklar. You got the pretty people where you got Carmen Electra, you got Tracy Bingham, you got what was it like going through that process and finding the right people for the show? How was that process like?
We didn't go through it. That wasn't us. That's Mac and Bradley. That's the production company hired by Comedy Central, who knows the Comedy Central brand. And is between and basically it's a love triangle. Comedy Central, First TV, which is Mac and Bradley's production company, and Trey and Greg BattleBots. And so they got to please the network, but at the same time, they got to please their partners. So we're the ones who are like, guys, this is a sport. So they think, okay, let's get Sean Salisbury or Tim Green. Comedy Central, like, no, it's got to be funny. So they get Bill Dwyer. Our demo is males 18 to 34, most of them in college smoking pot, get good-looking women, right? So that the company said, okay, cast the show, and that's what they did.
Wow.
Absolutely remarkable.
That's it. That's basically it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I know there's a separation between network and producer, and like what they want, as opposed to what you want to see, but you got to come to a common ground.
Even the new show, Trey and I didn't have much input in the casting. That was Aaron and Chris.
Okay.
Although we had a lot more input. They would definitely run stuff by us, but we trusted them when they said.
Do you enjoy having more input, or do you just let people do what they do best? No,
I really enjoy having more input. I really enjoy it.
Some people like to let it run.
Like my beginning in this is not so much the engineering part; it was the filming part. I was the guy filming us blowing that stuff up. I was the guy filming the thing for David Letterman, helping edit it. Anyway, so I love that. So Chris and Aaron were way more collaborative on that part with us. But ultimately they found Farouk, they found Chris and Kenny, Allison Hayslip, all those folks, Jessica
Molly
Chobot.
and Samantha, and this was especially Samantha Ponder too, because that was before, because now she's on ESPN. She hosts one of the bigger football shows on ESPN right now.
She'd still be with the show. That show just became a conflict with our show.
Yes, so and then she got pregnant, and then things got weird.
We would love to have. That was great.
Very cool.
I'm talking about Jenny Tapp though.
Oh yes, Jenny. Yes, that one.
Yes. About Jenny.
I was more talking about because you guys had 3 for the reboot. I will get more into the reboot when Jevin has his section.
That wasn't the right choice at all.
It's just but you guys go through those processes and those ABC seasons. But Jevin will dig more into that when he gets there.
Okay.
I do have another question about the box. The evolution of the box from the live shows that you did and the pay-per-view. You have a box that continuously evolves with hazards over the years. It's changed a lot since you guys started out. What's the process of kind of going through and deciding what kind of hazards in the box would be most effective against these modern, more beatable bots? I know you guys got saws and spikes and stuff like that, but what's the mad scientist in you? Does it kind of come back to when you were a kid and blowing stuff up? This would look cool on TV, where what kind of evil mechanical devices can I put in to basically ruin their day?
So when we, back in when we first built the thing, Mark Thorpe had all his traps. He had nets, he had bumpers. And then Mark said to us it was always his dream to raise it up, because then you could have stuff come up from underneath the floor. And so the very, very first incarnation of the BattleBox, we hired Christian Carberg to help us come up with stuff, and Scott LaValle. And I think between all of us, the idea came, I forget who came up with the kill saws, but that idea was, let's have some saws come up, right? Yeah. And let's have spikes. We had this big chunk, an array of spikes come up. And that sort of just stayed because the kill saws were so popular for a while. Then I think
especially with the lower weight classes,
especially in lower weight classes, for sure.
Oh yeah, and the screws.
The screw was just, I think Trey was driving around and wound up at some supply something or other and saw a giant auger and said, "That's awesome," right? And then talked to Pete Lambertson, who's the main guy who's designing the arena, and they made the screws. The Hellray Trey, the ground game is annoying, right? People always give
You're
us
telling
shit.
us. You're telling us.
I mean, how much crap do we get online about the floor?
Don't listen,
what
everybody.
Make it perfect. So let's say this right now. If the floor is perfect, the robots will tend to become more homogenized because they will have an even playing field for the ground game. If you make it a little bit random and a little bit unpredictable, you can't do that. So we don't, by design, we are not leveling every single thing perfectly. It's maybe like 16th, 8th inch of an off. And Trey invented these things called the Hellraisers, which are these little divots that just pop up randomly, just a little bit. And that's by design to, sometimes they screw up fights and, we all go, God dang those things. But other times, they enable something crazy to happen and something wild to happen and something unpredictable happen. So we're not going to be making the floor smooth anytime soon.
No, I think it's even like, I recall a story where even the little plates on the ground, you put like little washers in places like to raise like little parts of the floor to kind of make sure it isn't perfectly flat.
That was probably to repair dents, and the floor has got just, Trey and his crew fixed the whole damn thing 2 years ago. You probably saw pictures online. We posted them. We posted a video of
completely fresh floor, wasn't it?
Beautiful.
It was beautiful. And now it's just completely wrecked.
God darn those people who mess with your toys.
Yeah, so it's probably gonna have to get redone pretty soon here again. It's the ship of Theseus. It's my father's hammer is not my, whatever that thing is. It just keeps evolving. That it's not even the same one, even though it is the same.
It's like Trigger's broom.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But in terms of wild mad scientist stuff, one of the funnest things I've ever done was sit with Trey and Mark Gabbana when we got the green light from ABC. To redo the show, the first thing we thought is, now we can do some really cool shit with the arena, because we'll have a network budget to play with. Let's get Mark Gabbana, who's like this designer, conceptual designer who did Star Wars, The Matrix. The guy's a genius, right? Put his website you'll find it. It's amazing stuff. Mark Gabbana. So we sit around with him and we come up with the most funnest, silliest stuff. It's almost too much, but we had these things called the chandeliers that would be 4 positions in the roof, right? And you have a button. If you're the red square, you get 2 of them, and the blue gets 2 of them. And then whenever the robot goes underneath and there'd be a paint on the floor, you could push a button in the chandelier, which is just tons of fiery something evil spikes go on the other robot, right? And then it might lift it up, and you have to time it perfectly. We had this other thing where it was a giant tube that would have a J curve, and it would be stacked with bowling balls, and you could move the whole tube and aim the J curve at your opponent, right? And then pneumatically shoot the bowling ball at them as a way to just make the fight more interesting.
Double Jeopardy wasn't first for projectiles and BattleBots. That was there before.
You'd probably have 4 bowling balls. Mark drew the French door, the what is it? Where the builders drive, it's indented into the arena.
Yes,
and it has an angled piece of glass. Mark came up with that idea, and it gives better visibility. I believe he came up with that idea. Anyway, but then we thought, well, why don't we just put the damn thing in the middle of the arena and so we had scissor lifts that would come up and be red one, blue one, and they could go higher, this one go lower, right? And you could control the height of the scissor lift, and you could get 360 view around the whole arena. And the whole scissor lift thing, of course, is, there's a shield around it when you go all the way to the bottom. That'd be cool.
Makes me think about the old Robot Wars Series 3 cherry pickers.
Yeah, we wanted to have this claw that would come down and grab bots and then pick them up and put them in a basket.
I was gonna say, I think the video game might have done that. I think it was the what is it? Was it the oil rig, or was it the like the scrap yard, where like you have a magnet that go across the arena and it pick it up and it would drop it into a pit. Of course, you'd respawn because it's a video game. But yeah, that's that came to mind when you said that.
Oh, we want like Star Wars, the trash compactor. We wanted the walls so like this. We have an inner wall that would like start towards the last 30 seconds of the fight would go like this. So the fight would be, closer. So we had all these fun, stupid, crazy ideas. I have beautiful art on all of it. Mark drew these things beautifully. Maybe at one point I'll put them on our Instagram or something.
That'd be awesome.
But the conclusion was it's too expensive. And it really makes the show kind of too much like a Japanese game show / American Gladiator.
Takeshi Castle vibes, kind of.
Yeah,
Takeshi Castle,
a little bit.
And Chris Cowan, God bless him, really believed that this has to be a sport. He's full on with Trey and I, sport. And he was the one who cautioned, like, guys, we're getting too carried away. This has to be a sport. Let it be robot on robot and just keep the arena obstacles to a minimum, just to be there for the moment when it gets a little boring and you need to give them a little kick. And that's what we have done and have stayed with since. Although we might add something.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm sure the gears are always turning. That. And we've even seen that with the reboot, with the introduction of the shelf. But of course,
Trey really wants to bring back the ball of death that Mark Thorpe had, which is just a swinging ball. And you have to time your attacks perfectly to get past it before it smacked you. That kind of thing.
All right, very cool.
Maybe that will come back.
Yeah. All right. So BattleBots goes off the air. The Comedy Central run is over. We end up in kind of like a dark age a little bit with Robot Combat over here. Like, it still exists. We have the RFL that came up later, and then BattleBots had a couple of events. I know you have the 04 NPC charity event, and then the
RoboGames.
I think RoboGames, RoboGames is coming up, this big thing. Like, maybe, I don't know if you had any input. Was there any implication of maybe, trying to get that filmed and put that on TV? I know there was I
helped. I was just a judge at Dave's event, and Dave would show me, people would come around, production companies would come around saying, let's film this, and Dave would show me the contracts because I had a little experience now and I would help them that way. But it was absolutely a dark age, but it also wasn't if you were living in Florida.
Yeah. Oh my God. Living in Florida would have been incredible.
It was the greatest time ever if you're living in Florida, because Trey and I, towards the end of our Comedy Central run, thought, this is great for kids and we should form a nonprofit. We'll call it BattleBots IQ. And Nola Garcia, who had competed in the show with Billy Ray, Don't Play in the Street, whatever it was called. Buddy Lee.
I think Billy Ray's a guitarist.
Billy Ray was a preacher's son.
There you go.
Anyway, so Nola was gung-ho to help us. So we collectively created Bots IQ, BattleBots IQ, and did multiple, like a lot. I forget how many, 10 competitions for middleweight robots for high school and colleges in Miami. Once in a while, we did it in Mare Island in Vallejo, California, but mostly we did it in Miami. And from that, you spawn Mark DeVitz, Andrea and Mike, Will Bales,
Victor
Soto,
Paul Ventimiglia, Victor Soto, probably forgetting a few others, and even those people then start to infect Charles Guan, Jameson Go. They're in up north, but there's connections that are made there.
Yeah, at this point, Motorama, I think, is already going on. At this point, I
don't know, maybe
you don't think so? Yeah. I'm very bad with dates.
There was definitely the NPC charity open that was in Wisconsin. I forget, but there's a lot of stuff going on. So things started to grow. Robo Games then came into the scene. We're doing IQ. Other people are starting to do stuff. Robot Wars, the TV show, is starting to come over to America. Yeah. So yes, there was not a lot going on, let's say, but things were starting to grow beneath the surface.
It was.
And meanwhile, Trey and I are hooked up with so many different incarnations of production companies and producers who are going to help us get it back on TV. We're with CAA, then we're with William Morris, and then we're with Brian Gudinski, who was one of the EPs on the first American version of American Idol. Then we're with Fox Television Studios, which is the TV production wing of Fox, and Jill over there, and then the crazy thing that happens is Trey's mom has a friend who is sort of James Cameron's, I wouldn't say assistant, but a sort of helper of James Cameron, a connector, right? And
contact.
She's one of these ladies who connects people, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and she brings us to the set of Avatar, Trey and I, or Avatar 1, and we're watching this scene, against a green screen of some dudes in some jet being attacked by something you can't see, and people are, making fake wind and all this stuff, and well, that's cool. And then we meet James, and he says, "Oh, BattleBots, I love that show. If I was doing movies, I would be building a robot. You guys, that's the coolest thing ever." And he takes us up to his office. He gives us these cheesy 3D goggles. There's like a crappy screen, makeshift everything, and projector, and he shows us the first 20 minutes of Avatar in 3D in his office. And we're like, "Oh, it's a great movie. It's gonna be great." And so Trey is gung-ho to get this guy to just put his name on BattleBots, right? So we're trying everything we can. This is mostly Trey is doing it, and with the help of Fox, to get James Cameron BattleBots, right? Anyway, it gets even better than that, because we're still with Fox then, and Jill, and they're working on Mark Burnett.
Oh my God.
And so so I will never forget this meeting. We have Mark Burnett, James Cameron, Trey and I, Jill Schwartz
over here, you two.
Yeah, he does Survivor, right?
Yes.
Right. And he did The Apprentice with Trump, right?
Yeah.
He's
a big cheese, if you like.
Oh yeah.
The number one TV producer, reality producer, probably of all time. I mean, the guy
easily
was the dude. Anyway, so you two guys, we want you to produce BattleBots, and they dig it. They're going to do it, and yes, we're going to do it. What? And so anyway,
how do we swing this?
I'll never forget though. At the end of the meeting, we're walking outside back to our car. James Cameron comes up to me, not Trey, comes up to me, and he kind of like alpha males me into the back of the wall, and he says, "Now listen, if I'm going to do this show, it's got to be cool." Right?
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Sure thing, Mr. Cameron. Whatever you say.
I'll never forget that. That was awesome. Anyway, then there was this funny day when we had the big meeting with this. We pitch it to Discovery. This is another era of Discovery before the Discovery.
Before this one, yes.
Before this one, and we pitch it in the room. James Cameron's not even there. Mark Burnett's not even there. We just mention their names, how they're attached. We have a shitty PowerPoint that's not even on a computer screen. It's a piece of paper that we printed out from it.
Oh God!
They green light it in the room. They say yes in the room, which never happens. Never happens because of these guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then they do a thing, the upfronts with this big press thing. We bring Gear Crow to it, blah blah blah. Anyway, we have our first meeting between the head of the network, James Cameron, who's like about to go down into the depths of the ocean, so he's sitting on a satellite phone. Mark Burnett, who's somewhere in Fiji or whatever, shooting a Survivor, and Trey, who's in the dentist chair with cotton mouth.
God.
He can't speak. He just has the phone. So, and I'm listening in, and Jill's on the phone. And anyway, chatting about how great it's going to be. And the woman from Fox, Nancy Daniels, she says, so tell me about the robots. And it's not like no one could see each other, but basically all the eyes on the phone look at me because I'm the guy from BattleBots, and Trey got caught in his mouth. And so I tell her about the robots, how cool they are. I describe Mike Satrakian, genius engineer, Scott LaValle, young whiz kid who can build anything, and all the people from Florida who have now come up as kids. It's going to be great, right? I'm pitching it, right? And then, but it turns out Discovery is thinking James Cameron, and they're thinking flying robots.
Yeah.
Fire bombs from the sky, ginormous things, Atlas, Boston Dynamics things, boxing like real steel. And, Trey and I had to tell them that doesn't work, right? It's way expensive. And if you want our builders to do that, you're going to have to pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars to come up with that. And B, this shit's going to fall down and it's not going to make the best TV. So that project started to just fizzle out. And we're like, oh, shit.
Instant highs, ultimate lows.
We had the biggest dudes, and we couldn't get the show. And they wanted to change the name to Robogeddon, which is like, like we talked about.
That sounds like a shitty robot that would lose the Hypnodisc in Series 3.
That's a niche reference.
It's because it was.
So to me, it's changing the name is sacrilege. It's a brand. We've created this brand.
Yeah.
And you can't change the name. Anyway, I still own the Robogeddon Facebook page because I just swiped it.
Hey, what the hell? Why not? It's there.
Anyway, so well, go ahead. Next question.
Oh,
I
guess I'm kind of leading toward that way, with the relationship with Fox and even CBS College Sports, where they were going to show the collegiate championship out in 2009, on TV, and then after one episode, it's just poofed away. Fizzled out.
I think that was just sort of a production schedule. Trey took upon himself to edit it, and with just make a ragtag team of editors to do it all. We did the voiceover and we sucked.
Not so. I've seen that episode. It's pretty good.
It sucks. We got Trey's dad, has a speech writer who writes a lot of speech for politicians and stuff. So we got him to be the MC and write the script. He did a pretty good job, actually. Anyway, it just wasn't that great. It was shot. It was kind of dark. You could see it was very homemade.
Yes.
And it just didn't go far. And I think there was some just struggles with the network in terms of not between us, just the network having content.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, and then I guess
it was one of these things where we got a gig, let's do it.
Yeah, why not? Anytime to get a chance on TV and get it, kind of keep it in the the
psyche.
The popular media, inside people's brains, remember this thing, it's still here, it still exists. And it wouldn't be the last time we'd see it on TV. I mean, there was a special on Science Channel. I know the late great Grandin Mahara was one to I believe he hosted. It was called Killer Robots Robo Games 2011.
That was basically RoboGames. RoboGames got Killer Robots.
Yep, absolutely. And there's a lot of bots in that episode that end up showing up on BattleBots now. You got Gruff, you have the Raptors, you have Original Sin, you got Ziggy, and you have Toro Maximus and Great Pumpkin, Ray Billings. There's a Sewer Snake. Oh God, Sewer Snake. And that was so cool to see. And then I remember seeing that. I was just getting out of high school. I'm like, oh my God, it's coming back. It's on Science Channel. Then they'll think like, oh my God, I know Greg and Trey are totally, they got to be involved in this somehow, and that it'll come. And then it kind of got quiet again. And then we wouldn't hear any rumblings until around early 2014, like 2015, and then all of a sudden, here we come back. And I guess I'll pass it over to Jevin, except for I do have one more question though. I know there are a lot of college teams already in the sport. Going back to 2009, where you had a collegiate championship specifically, especially kind of tying into we have March Madness right now and all these college teams going out for a national championship. Is there an idea possibly in place to do a specific a college championship? Because you got UC Berkeley, you have WPI, you have You had Wichita State once upon
MIT.
a time with Battlesol, MIT, so many teams from there. Is there do you think there would be enough demand for a specifically college title for BattleBots as opposed to professional teams and professional contests and stuff like that?
Yeah, funny you should ask. Right now we're rebuilding our registration system where people apply for BattleBots. And one of the first things we changed, what we added was league. You pick robot name, weapon type, league, click, drop down, professional, college.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we hope to have a college competition sometime in 2024 for sure. And we've just opened up a new 501c3 called BattleBots Foundation. And so, but that would probably be the entity that will hold the college tournament. It'll very much be a STEM focused kind of a thing. But again, now that we have the permanent facility in Vegas, it's time to rekindle a lot of things we couldn't do because we're constantly moving the box around. So yeah, college is definitely on the horizon.
Fantastic. Very cool. And that's huge too, because I feel like that era, like you were saying, all those kids that kind of grew up and kind of were building robots in Florida specifically, really helped the show later in its life, to kind of, it kind of rebirthed it when ABC picked it up. And at this point, Jeff, and you have the floor. Let's do Reboot.
Yeah. So you've led on very nicely to my first question, which is, when did the process sort of move into ABC then taking on the show and picking it up and running with it?
Yeah. So the upfronts are one of these things where TV, and they didn't do them during COVID, and they may not even do them very much anymore. But back in the day, you had to preview your fall lineup for the media buyers and the advertisers. So they could, Procter and Gamble could know who they want. Oh, that's a great show. We want to get our stuff on ads on that broadcast. Those were called the upfronts. Big, huge deal for networks. And like I said, RoboGeddon, somewhere online on YouTube, you can probably find it. Nancy Daniels is up there introducing from James Cameron and Mark, I was going to say Mark Pauline, but Mark Burnett, it's RoboGeddon, and Gear Crow comes out. Anyway, backstage, because it's Discovery Channel, is Jamie Heineman and Adam, and Trey went to these upfronts. They were in New York. Trey and Jamie, we're good friends with those guys, and Jamie's telling Trey how they've hooked up with this new production company called Whale Rock, and they're doing this thing called Tested. And I'll hook you up, because we were already getting like this RoboGeddon. They wanted to build these robots that probably aren't going to work, and it's already starting to fizzle out. Right? The writing was on the wall. Anyway, it did fizzle out, and then we took a meeting with Whale Rock. We met their head of television, Chris Cowan, and Chris was one of these like singular in the TV industry, like someone we never met before. Very smart, a lot of smart guys in TV, but sort of really smart in the thing we were focused on, which is wanting to make it into a true sport. And he said it before we said it. Guys, this is the way I envision this, right? It was totally parallel with what we wanted to do. True sport, builder heroes. And Whale Rock was owned or founded by Lloyd Braun, who, if you look him up, he was one of the heads of TV for ABC, who started Lost, Grey's Anatomy, Desperate Housewives, 3 ginormous money-making shows for the network. He got fired from Lost because the pilot was like $14 million. They bought an airplane and moved it over to Hawaii and flew it up. They fired him for that, but then it became one of the best shows ever, from a success standpoint. Anyway, so he's a legend in the TV world. And we worked up the revised concept for the reboot with Chris. And then we started pitching it to networks. We pitched it to ABC because that's Lloyd Braun's hunting ground, his old alma mater. And we got a green light. And Trey and I like, what the hell?
A big time
We thought,
cable network, yeah.
Were you worried
show,
like, oh, we've been burned before? This is a big network. We can't screw this up.
We're always worried. TV is one of these minefields of challenges.
It's so fickle. It can be here today, gone tomorrow.
Yeah. So we've always been good. Our deals take a long time to do because Trey mostly fights to get to not get screwed, right? Mm-hmm. And so these things
leave those in the box
and they last forever. Yeah, exactly. But we did the deal with ABC and we shot the first season, which was a bit of a disaster. It's only 6 episodes, and it was
you did well with what you had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, everyone was used to number one, our old shows that we did on Mare Island. Mm-hmm. I said Mare Island, where we would go 11 minutes. My wife's getting the robots in and out 11 minutes, right? And Robo Games, where they'd get them in and out probably in 9 minutes, right? Dave did even better than us, right? And then we're taking an hour to get, and it was like, oh god,
yeah. Time in the box very expensive.
I was having a heart attack because I'm used to the quick pace, and we were just so slow, and it was awful. And I saw Dave in the audience dressed up in a disguise, and I just knew it was him. And I'm just looking at him. I know he's thinking how we're just fucking it all up. But anyway, when it came out of the editing room, it was pretty freaking cool. There's a lot of things wrong with it. We shouldn't have had 3 people on stage just chatting about robots for half the damn show. It should have been more.
You're kind of having like a sportscaster kind of thing where they talk at the desk and then they go to the field, and then they come back and kind of, chew the fat again. And then they,
exactly. That's the model. And it also has to, ABC's demo is mostly women. So you have to draw the female side into the show and get them to say, family, come and watch this. Mm-hmm. And that's actually what happened is we had the highest co-viewing ratings than most other shows, which means families watching, which is great because that's what it should be.
Yeah.
And anyway, year 2, so year 1 is great. Renew, do it again, guys, and let's do 11 episodes. Cool. Showrunners Aaron Catling, and Aaron has got this beautiful mind for figuring out exactly how we should format this many robots, this many episodes. We're going to do a prelim, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do a buy-in, and then we're going to do the tournament. And it's just like, yes, that is excellent. So Aaron would come up with all those great ideas, and of course execute the show with the post team and Chris. And we're super happy. We're going great. And season 2 is even better, right? And we're working the bugs out. We did a lot faster. We moved the show to LA. We got in a much quicker pace. The LA audience was happy. They were digging it. People were dancing. We would have the music between the fights. We made it like a real sporting event live, and then capture what we needed in the TV show. Mm-hmm. And then the TV show happens, and it's the election year, and Trump wins the Republican nomination, and he makes a 3-hour speech, and our show gets pushed to 3:00 in the morning. Hillary wins her Democratic convention. She makes a 3-hour speech, and we get pushed to 3:00 in the morning.
Wow,
there's a horrible shooting.
I never even considered how much of an effect that would have. I don't even know why I didn't even think that was the reason. That is a huge reason why certain parts of that season didn't get the viewing figures they needed.
Yeah, no. So the ratings are like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then, then it comes up a little softer, and then it's,
I remember distinctly.
The Olympics happen, and we're gone for 2 weeks, and then the ratings they come back like this.
Yeah, I remember distinctly. Back in the day, finding a dodgy stream of ABC. I was talking to Steve at the time. Me and Steve have been friends for God knows how many years at this point.
2008, Sam, I think it was.
Something like that. Anyway, and I'm watching the show, and I'm just thinking, where is it? I waited up until like 2-3 in the morning because I had college late on a Friday, so I thought I'll just watch BattleBots while I'm waiting, and it never came, and it never even trigged to me that actually, do you know what, it's because of the election.
Yeah. So in that world, they everything is live and die by the ratings. Unfortunately, especially in a broadcast world. Mm-hmm. And so we got booted only after 16 episodes plus that special. Yeah. So bummer. And we're going around again, pitching it to every
Yep.
freaking network. We're pitched it to YouTube TV, right?
Yes.
YouTube TV. And we pitched it, NBC was kind of like, oh, maybe we do like this, Anyway, nothing worked out. But ABC, trying to make a little more money off of what they spent on the show, sells the rights to air the seasons 1 and 2 on Science Channel.
Mm-hmm.
And Science Channel says, okay, and it becomes the highest rated show they've ever had, or some number. That's really impressive, right? I'm probably exaggerating again, but it was really
I
good.
mean, yeah, it was good, yeah.
Yeah, so they want to do a new series 3 of the reboot. And we're like, yep, let's do it. So we make a deal and we do it. And just before we're about to shoot, Discovery says, hold on a second. We want to show this too. Yeah. Oh, what? Okay. So we fix everything. And then we're on Discovery and Science. Mm-hmm. They're the same network, but they have different people who make the deals, right? Mm. And then pretty quickly after, this is our 5th season on Discovery. Pretty quickly, Science went down and Discovery went up and just took over the whole thing. So we're not on Science anymore.
Yeah, just leave it on one network so you don't have to split your audience between 2 networks. It's a little bit more concise.
There's some cannibalization going on, and so and so here we are, seasons 5. Definitely thinking about season 6, World Championship 8.
Mm-hmm. Are we ever going to clean that naming scheme up? Because it's like 2015,
I do like the World Championship convention.
I do too.
No, so from here on out, it's World Championship Roman numeral. Okay. Just like the Super Bowl. Because you can't shoot a show in 2022 and have it air in 2023 and call it season 2022.
Yeah.
And then season 7 makes no sense because people think about the Comedy Central era. And I don't even know how many seasons we've on Discovery now. Is it 5 or 6? I don't remember. Yeah.
Well, it's been since series 3, so this is the 4th. This is the 4th one on
the
Discovery.
5th one. No, it's the 5th.
5th one?
Yeah.
I think it's the 5th.
Oh, I can math. I'm sorry.
3, 4, 5,
so
6.
See how we all get confused?
Yeah.
So World Championship 7.
It works on the banners.
Sometime this year or next year, we'll do World Championship 8, and then 9 and 10, and keep going, and then have College Championship 1. Golden Bolt 3, and keep going.
Very cool.
So just sort of backtracking a little bit to 2015, and I'm really glad you went into all the other network stuff, because there was another question later on. We've covered it all. It's great. But what was the brief to the builders going into 2015? Because obviously you're going to build these guys up as sort of heroes of the show. They're the main characters, and the robots they build are, part of that as well. But what exactly were you looking for in 2015?
The big lesson from Comedy Central was you got to have an active weapon, right? You can't just have a box with a wedge. And a lot of other competitions pop up, and a lot of them are boxes with wedges, just like we have on the Comedy Central show. And there's always like these 4 bots who have active weapons or a really fast wedge who just go to the top and win, right? And so
season 5.0 there was quite a few. Wasn't there? Because I know in the Super Heavies, Maximus made it really far. That was a wedge on 4 wheels. The Big B, Gary Jin made it all the way to the final against Ziggo. There's others. I mean, Gladiator had a lifting wedge, so that was active enough to kind of get around that. But that thing is yeah.
So we thought, and then and we're always, Trey and I are always thinking stuff, but we're always consulting with Pete and Mark Satrakian, who are the 2 guys who got us into this. And they were guys, you have to have kick-ass fights. You got to have active weapons. So before we even met with Whale Rock, we were like, we are having active weapons now, a new set of rules, very much simpler, no 30, 50 page rule book. It's down to like 15 pages. It just don't do the stupid shit and come up with a cool idea and let us know, and we'll say yes or no.
Good message to have.
So that was one of the briefs to the builders is we got to put on kick-ass fights. You got to have an active weapon, but we want to open the door for you on a creative level to just come up with something new and cool and just tell us, and we'll say yes or no. The rules have become a lot. I mean, back then the rules were like 50 pages. Let's just see what you can come up with. and send us, CAD is now everyone using CAD. Send us CAD file, render it out. Let's look at it, and yes or no, we'll tell you how we feel.
Sending files as well. That must be a massive thing that you probably never used to have back in the day. Like
no, we didn't know what we got. We'd have them send photos, and they didn't even have that. So we just said, you can come, just come. Have this ginormous prelim of 500 robots, and then so the Comedy Central show, we'd have a 7 days of like prelims, and then the cameras would roll in and the truck would hook everything up and all the producers would arrive, and we'd only shoot like the last four, maybe 5 days for the actual TV show. But before that, there was like 6, I don't know, a lot of days of just fight, weeding it out. But, and then, then it was sort of like there was the Robo Games faction, like the Ray Billings and the Gary Gins and the Matt Maxims, who were sort of the king of the hill for that. And then there was the Florida contingent, who are now out of college, real engineers. They came up out of IQ. They were buddies with sort of the MIT, sort of Ivy League faction up near Boston area. And then, of course, some of just the California teams, which were really Robo Games teams, right? And so all of those commingled together. And then there you go. You got Tombstone, you got Witch Doctor, you got Hypershock, you got Fight Force, right?
Yeah.
And it evolves quite nicely, I would say, from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So when everything came back from ABC to Discovery, were there any other ideas that were floated around about the format? Obviously, it got revamped to the Fight Night format, which works really well. And I know there are other smaller weight class competitions around the world using Fight Night. I think there was one today that in the UK that uses that format because it's just it's so good. But were there any other ideas that sort of floated around?
No, we were all gung ho to sort of keep this qualifier and then like we did on ABC, and then go to the tournament. So it was always about something cool and then the tournament. And then we had a challenge. And that was selling the show internationally. Because we now would get to control, ABC would control the international distribution of the first show, I believe. We now control the international distribution of what we shoot for Discovery. And Tom Gutteridge, of course, from Mentor and Robot Wars, is now partnered with, is one of our EPs. He's consultant for Trey and I, independent contractors coming in and helping us amazingly, right? And he's got this one of his jobs, of his many jobs, is to sell the show internationally. And his challenge is, I got a lot of episodes that to sell, and they all lead up to this final thing, right? And I have to sell all of them because you got to have the end. We need shows that need an ending every single episode. So I don't know if it was Aaron, I don't know if it was Tom, or if it was each of them independently. But between those two guys, this idea taken from boxing, of course, is you just have a fight card, And back then we thought of it like you're going to have the undercard fights, you're going to have a midway major, and then you're going to have the main event. And we're just going to take a page from boxing and do it that way. And guess what? At the end, you have a main event every episode. So when these are re-edited for international, you don't have to even talk about the tournament. You just have a main event, and you just if Portugal wants to buy 6 out of the 20 episodes, they just buy 6 main events. So that became a solution for selling internationally, and also a creative solution, because obviously we're getting more robots now who want to come, and I think we got an 18 episode deal with Discovery for series 3. I forget, maybe it was 18 episodes, but anyway, that's a lot to film.
Yeah.
So now
they just keep
robots.
stretching it, It's just they keep wanting more and more.
Well, we do that.
Okay.
Because that's the way to pay for it.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So it becomes a great solution from all fronts. And then ultimately, its ultimate evolution is the builder saying, I want more than one fight in the prelim, or more than 2, and how come he got 3? And I need to get into a groove, and you need to actually really see my resume. And then us having to stretch the show to 56 some odd
Hours.
amount of hours
It's
to be able
ridiculous.
to pay for it, pay the builders stipends, pay for the production, pay for the post-production, pay for all the crazy COVID costs. So the only way you can do that is to get more episodes, because you get paid for each episode. That's how the network pays you. They pay you by the episode. So that it's getting longer and longer. So the new evolution is 4 fights, fight card, resume, tournament, go, golden, giant nut, winner. And then they even gave us the summer show because they liked it so much. 6 episodes in the summer, which actually works out great, because when you're shooting the tournament and you have a live audience, right? You can shoot the Sweet 16, great, because that's 16 fights and that fills up a whole day. But when you get down to 8 and then 4 and then 2 and then 1, you can't just shoot one. You need enough time for the builders to fix. You can't shoot one fight on a Sunday and tell the audience to go home.
No,
you got to show them 10.
I don't think they'll buy that.
So, no. So Golden Bolt, we mix and mingle all the fights. Again, Aaron Catling brilliantly coming up with the calculation to do it. And we get through the production now. Really, it's a struggle. It's a marathon. It's insane, but we do it and we pull it off.
It doesn't look
what you see on TV. I think I wasn't expecting, but it is basically the same time frame as live. The only thing that's sort of cut out is the loading in and out of the bots in the box, and even some of that is taken up by Farouk introducing the next robot. It's
either the first or sixth time he's tried.
Yeah.
Sometimes, well, he's the true talent. Sometimes it just comes out as word salad, and then he'll get back into it. So, but
yeah, but no, it is so rapid fire, and it's so incredibly done. I don't think I can't imagine there's many other places in robot combat that could ring through fights like that, other than having more than one box, which for BattleBots you can't do. There's one box, there's space for one box, and that's what you
I imagine the cost of another box is just obscene as well.
Oh, it'd be insane. Well, that's a testament to. It's a testament to 2 things. It's a testament to the product, our team, from Trey and the crew bots, getting the robots in and out of the arena quickly, even if there's a fire, just taking care of it safely, but then quickly. To the producers, figuring out, doing all the behind the scenes shooting in an efficient way that doesn't tie up the robot builders, which sometimes happens. To my team and Aaron dealing with all the postponements and I can't go now, so swapping fights and all this stuff. And then ultimately, though, it's the builders. They're now coming with 3 chassis, 4 hypershocks, tons of spare parts, an array of motors and speed controllers. Swap. Pit crews have gone from 5 people to 10 people, and they're busy. They're in marathon mode. They have little mini lathes on their pit tables, and they're just tooling stuff. They're 3D printing over there. They're going to the Haas machine shop and CAD filing something up and making a new part. And they are just 24/7 fixing everything. Lincoln Electric is fixing shit, and they are mostly ready to go. And there's delays and there's postponements. Sometimes we even glitch, didn't make it. First one we've ever had. But usually we get it to work. And it's really a testament to the builders and all the work they put into till 3 o'clock in the morning every day, even on the dark days, to get their bots ready for the next fight.
Absolutely.
In 2020, obviously, COVID hits, delays production, gets pushed back to, I think it was late summer recording and everything. But the audience obviously can't be there, and we had all the builders in booths cheering on their friends there in the fights and everything. It's really lovely to see. Was there ever an idea to bring that element back in 2021 with the audience being back in sort of a COVID safe way, having those builder booths still be a part of the show?
We love, the builder booths was a great solution for the 2020, obviously, because you can't have a live audience. And so that was a fantastic brainstorm, because you need the reactors, right?
Yeah.
Chris Callan would say, we need reactors. You can't just show fights. You need someone to go, right? And who better than the builders? So that idea was dreamt up by some genius on our crew. I forget who it was. Maybe it was Tom, or maybe it was Aaron or something. But worked great, right? And then, but you got it, the builders had to be pulled out from the pit, then thrown back into the pit, and then pulled out again. And then, so we had to produce the audience and the pit and the fights so everyone could get the fights in on time.
Yeah.
And that became a bit of a 3-ring circus. And there's no revenue from ticket sales, right? So a lot of people don't know this, but there's we have to pay a portion of the production budget. Discovery does not pay 100% of it. We have to pay some of it. And we make that through the toys and the international and ticket sales and some sponsorship. And so ticket sales is crucial for us. Without it, it's tough to do. We can't produce the show because it brings in revenue that makes the show possible. So as soon as possible, we wanted to make it happen. Las Vegas becomes an area where you can start having shows before California. The Long Beach facility was closing down anyway and selling it to, I think, UPS. So we found that building, we made that deal with Caesars, and it worked out great. People had to wear masks. That's good. No one got sick. I will say that in this latest 2022 shoot, where there's hardly any COVID protocols other than masks when you're really close inside and regular testing, a lot of people got COVID. I got COVID right after. Aaron got COVID right after.
I went home with the bot flu. I know I did. I didn't get COVID, but I definitely went home with a raspy throat, and it was not fun. I had missed a plane, and I had to sleep on the floor of an airport with bot flu. It was not fun.
Well, you guys,
it's like coming home from a convention. It was terrible.
If you stayed for the tournament, you might remember that a team captain had to be swapped because of the COVID.
I've heard that has happened. I don't know who it is though.
Looking forward to seeing how that's going.
You'll find out.
Happen on the TV
all they've told me is that that happens to somebody there. So we'll I'll be interested.
And then, so as love or hate them, the protocols that we had for 2020 and 2021, which is
they paid off.
Testing. They paid off. Yeah. Airflow, masks, all that shit worked. No one got sick.
Even this time when the pits were split,
Yeah.
So you mentioned obviously
answer?
It does, yeah. You mentioned going into 2021, obviously the move to Vegas. How did that process actually go to getting the deal with Caesars and sorting everything out? I mean, there were photos all over the Facebook page, Instagram of several different venues. An ice hockey ring was looked at, an old air hangar was looked at.
Beautiful archway by the sea.
Yeah.
a long time since the All-American Sports Park was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The archway by the sea is I run the social for BattleBots. So on my phone, I have my Mega Greg account and I have my BattleBots account. And I accidentally posted this nice vacation photo of my wife and I onto the BattleBots account. And I made a joke because my friend Angus, I just sent him a picture of our nice little breakfast we just had. And he goes, "Oh, you're eating chicken apple sausage. That's delicious, right?" And so I made this caption said chicken apple sausage on the thing by the sea, and I put it on the freaking BattleBots.
And then everyone thinks like, "Oh my god,
it's a cryptic message,
it's a reality game."
How can we work this out? Zoom and enhance,
whatever they call it. Yes. So I immediately took it down, which made it even more like, oh, it's for real.
You should have kept it. Keep the fans guessing. Come on now.
Well, I did. I put up a few more on Facebook, just to do like one of those augmented, whatever those reality.
ARG, augmented reality games.
ARGs. Yeah. Anyway, so what was the question?
The move to Vegas. The Long Beach building seemed to be being closed down for a good
Long Beach was
6
fantastic.
years.
Best building on planet Earth.
Yeah.
But they were going to sell it, and we had to leave. And there's been this idea to have a live show forever. It solves a lot of problems because of the box moving around, permanent location. Builders can come and practice. We can have off-season qualifiers, call it proving ground. We can do college, high school things. We can have camps. We can do all kinds of shit. But we need a home for the damn box. And obviously, Vegas makes total sense because it has tourist after tourist after tourist coming in, out, in, out. It's a place where you could do the same show night after night after night, and no one's going to know because it's different.
Well, now they'll know.
Well, yeah, but Penn and Teller do the same magic stuff every night, but they get a different audience every night, right?
Of course.
So I forget, we were running, Trey and I are in Vegas a lot for different reasons. And there's that tent in back of Horseshoe, and I forget who knew about it. One of our guys knew about it. Maybe it was John Remar knew about it. And we literally just stopped and we banged on the fence, and the security guard comes out and we go, "Can we did that TV show BattleBots. Can we look at this building?" And the security guard's like, "All right." Phone call. Executive Caesars person comes out and they let us in, and we look at it, and there's always this mental algorithm we do in our head is, will the box fit? Will the bleachers fit? Where do we put the pit? Da 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 da. And half the time, every building is no. This was like just barely. We can probably do it, right? Mm-hmm. And there's this wonderful little pit that's the exact same dimensions as the arena, that the arena can actually sink down into it, which makes things kind of interesting because the audience will see better. Mm-hmm. So anyway, let's see if we can get this building. So inquiry, meet the right people, negotiate. We get it for the season, whatever it was, 6 shoot, right? Mm-hmm. And then we're thinking this is the place where we can have the permanent facility. This is going to be it. This is perfect. We have to actually not just rent this place. We have to lease this place for, X amount of years and just find a way financially to do the show here night after night after night after night. So for the last year, we've been doing that. And now, happy to say, started in February, just like a month ago, BattleBots Destructathon, which is the nightly showcase version of BattleBots, has been running for like all 2 months now. Mm. And and the audience, it started out a little bit rough, like all shows do. Some of the fights were like conk, right? Yeah. And the lighting didn't work, and the video cues were too loud or whatever. But we've worked that out, and now the show's tight, very crisp. The fights are really good. It's super entertaining. It's not, people have to know this though. It's not the TV show. Right. You guys have been TV shows 4 hours. You're waiting for fights. That's kind of the shitty part. The great part is it's Jameson Go and Will Bales, and they're really there, and they're there to win, and they're to kick ass. Mm-hmm. Destructathon is a showcase. Will Bales has built 5 Hypershocks. Andrea and Mike have built 5 Witch Doctors. There's 5 Mammoths, 5 Nightmares, 5 Diablos, 5 Malices. Again and again, you can go to battlebots.com.
And they're really dense, they all have to dense.
They're made of steel, not aluminum. They're meant to fight night after night. And sometimes those builders show up. Bunny shows up a lot. Mm-hmm. They have real jobs, real lives, real families, so they're not there night after night. So we have Vegas representative teams. Farouk's not there, Kristen Kennedy not there, but we have Bill Dwyer. He's the host. Steve Junkins is the co-host. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of fun, and the audiences are digging it. And I can encourage anyone who can get out to Vegas to come see it. It's a lot of fun. And then, of course, we will do the live show there at some point this year or early next year.
There's a couple of videos come up online of it, and serious FOMO, because you see all this stuff happening, and you're just like, oh man, wish I could be there. Love it. So I think my final question in this section anyway is that with Destructathon now going on, the series going now on for 7 on Discovery, well, since its reboot, ABC and Discovery, and a worldwide following, how long does BattleBots go on for?
I know
that's the big question.
I know that's kind of like a very dread question, but
but as someone who's been through the ups and the downs, and the up and the down, and this, so I don't even know. It could end tomorrow, right? Mm-hmm. There may never be a season 8, right? But we're making the moves to have it never go away, mm-hmm. right? So having the permanent facility in Vegas is the move to have it never go away. You can always come see BattleBots, and if it's not on TV, we'll keep doing tournaments there. We'll keep having Destructathon there, as long as it gets an audience, and as long as people buy tickets, as long as it can financially sustain itself. And then we can do colleges stuff there. And then, might have to be 18 months, might have to be 2 years, but another network will come along and want to see it, because there's always this we knew the great thing is we have an audience. When we went from ABC to Discovery, the ratings really didn't change that much in terms of the core audience. So and from Science to Discovery as well. And then even after those breaks, like we have this 2-week break and we have the Shark Week breaks, we have a core audience who watches the show. The trick is you got to grow that. So things like this podcast help, and things like all the stuff to build our social media and having some videos go viral on TikTok and the worldwide presence and all of the other competitions that are popping up just makes robot fighting a real true sport. And then having the facility in Vegas means that it can just keep going and going and going and going. So that's the goal, right? But it has to make money. It has to have an audience.
It has to be self-sustaining.
Yeah. So as long as it can do that, we'll be here. If it doesn't do that, then I'll get a job at mailboxes, etc.
And as long as it's still going, we'll be here. Spinner Proof will be here. Behind the Bots will be here. Outside the Box will be here. Green Square will be here. Red Square, Blue Square. Who am I forgetting? There's so many little niche. I mean, it's one of those things where like we have missed the show for so long. You know, we've always wanted to, get involved with it in some sort of way to kind of, bolster it. It's fact what we love.
When Robot Wars went off the air and everything, I was so gutted to not be able to get to a live taping of it. So I was determined to get to BattleBots if it financially crippled me or whatever. And
sure enough, it has.
And it did, but I made it, and that's what matters. I will pay off those debts someday.
Yeah. But the encouraging thing is well, there's a lot of encouraging things, but one, Trey and I just did Rick Rubin's podcast, right? Who's the big Def Jam Records and Beastie Boys and Red Hot Chili Peppers. So even Rick Rubin is from a totally different world than our insular world of robot fighting people who just go on Reddit and communicated about it and love the whole thing. This is a whole nother. So I think that means that we're growing, right?
Yeah.
So that's great. So. And then with the Structathon happening, a lot of people who come through, we have an exit survey and we ask them how they know about us. A lot of people don't even watch the TV show. So that means
they now might.
There were people in the audience when we were in Vegas for the taping of this season that's on at the moment who had just walked in off the street basically and said, "Hey, had no idea this was going on." And what's this all about then? And then me, Steve, and David were there explaining BattleBots to them and going, if you watch a fight, you'll get it, honestly.
I will say one of the most fun things to do was that we were lucky enough to have a couple of mornings in the pits to talk with the builders and kind of, just have a good time.
For that.
Yes, very much so.
That's the best part. That's the best part, especially now that COVID relaxed.
We walked around with one of the it's okay. I walked around with one of the representatives that we had walking around the pits, and I will say I felt bad that I knew more than she did about the sport, but I was so excited to tell her everything I knew. I basically gave her like an ad-lib version of Gearheads, and it was just it was just so much fun to just pour passion out to somebody that maybe didn't have the because they didn't grow up with it. It's totally new. It's something that they they're being exposed to now, and like, oh, what's this all about? What is this team about? What's their history? That's like very interested in it. It was it's very eye-opening to meet somebody who hasn't seen the show before, and to just share everything that that I've experienced, and that I'm Sam and Jevin and David, and we've all had these experiences, and like what we've seen on TV and now what we've seen live, we can bring that forward. And I will say, being live at the event this time, I feel like it's made it better for us, when we're describing fights, because we know a little more about like what led up to that fight, why it happened, a little bit more minutia. So it's been really nice to have that connection.
Well, you guys will be back for season 8, I'm sure.
We'll try our best. We'll try our best. Even I might try.
I'm already saving vacation. I've been saving vacation since my anniversary date. So
I'm just stockpiling money.
Before we wrap up, we had so many listener questions. I'm conscious of time, and this has been going for nearly 2 hours already. So I'm going to try and limit us each to 2 questions. Okay. So take your picks as and when you want to.
No.
Well, I'll try to go for my question.
Okay, I'm going to start off. Who should I start off with? Okay, we'll start off with a bad builder on Discord who asks, "What is your favorite pizza topping?"
That's easy. My favorite pizza topping is actually sausage, and people hate me for it because I'm always the guy who says, "Can we do the sausage pizza?" And they're like, "God, we always have to be the sausage pizza." Yeah, no, I'm the Italian sausage lover of pizza. So much so that when I was a kid, we had a babysitter took me and my friend to the pizza place because our parents were out doing some shit, and had a food fight and we're throwing stuff at each other, and they kicked us out of the pizza parlor. And I picked every piece of sausage off of the pizza, put it in my mouth, and walked out the door. And actually, I didn't see there was a big glass door, and I just went
straight into it. It's straight into it.
But yeah, that
Italian
is my favorite
sausage.
topping.
At least it's not pineapple.
Yes.
That's good.
No,
God,
pineapple.
he's still on
I can
this.
I can deal. I can hang, but no.
Viewers, if you're
Telling
tuning
you
in week
guys.
by week to hear Sam's current feelings on pineapple on pizza,
It's super good.
I
You guys
mean,
are just
was.
missing out.
I don't like pineapple anyway, so I'm not going to like
I
pineapple
had
on
a
pizza.
chicken club topping the other day.
Okay.
It was just too. It was. They put all this garlic sauce on it. It was just
Oh,
too
but-
saucy. It was.
But garlic is
Like
good though,
sushi
isn't it?
rolls where they put too much mayonnaise on it, and it's just like
Yeah.
I'm an Italian. I've got garlic in my blood, basically. So
No, I love that too, but it's too wet. It's just like
okay, I got you.
That's a
I got
really
you.
strange image.
Yeah.
Steve, go for it. What you got?
All right. So let's do Commodore Z on Twitter. Are there any robots from the Comedy Central era that you would like to see applied to compete with new versions in Modern Era or Destructathon?
Hell yeah. We'd love to see
Any
Vlad the
particular-
Impaler come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Gage should come back just for fun. Definitely Carlo's got to come back. Come on, Carlo.
Yes.
He's had a robot idea he's wanted to do, but Carlo's very exact. I need this much time to execute and then do the event. And we always have this thing where we green light too late, and Carlo says, "I can't do it. Not enough time." But maybe we'll do it at some point. He'll be able to do it. Love to see Jonathan Ritter come back. He actually almost did come back, but then timing issues.
Don't tease me, Greg, man.
Mechavore, those
Let's
Mechavore
go.
dudes. Hell, let's get the Schilling Robotics guys with Thor from Robot Wars.
Yeah.
Mark Strakian needs to build something. Maybe we'll see that Walker that he brought out.
Yeah, the Walker
the
division.
live show people know about. Maybe that can become something.
Mm.
Yeah. Scott LaValle.
Right.
Come on, Scott.
Yeah. Where you at, man?
Yeah.
All right, Jevin.
Those are the ones I want.
A friend of the podcast, my girlfriend doesn't like robots. Great name still. Are there any teams from previous seasons that you're surprised haven't been on the show again? So, for example, those that appeared on ABC to Discovery.
No, because the ones. So on the off season, I have a ton of communications with the builders all the time, like almost 24/7. I'm talking to Bill. My phone blows up all the time. And so I know the struggles why they've quit because of a family thing, or they quit because of a job thing, or they quit because it's just school's too difficult. Or, our rules don't allow some high voltage thing. So, until you guys do that, I just going to bow out, or whatever it is. Right. So I know that I just know I've been through the conversation after conversation after conversation to know that it's not a surprise. Right. It sucks. It would be great to have certain people back. But it is what it is,
Okay. So the next one comes from my own teammate, Joe Brown, one of the heads of the Bristol Bot Builders, who asks, "What is your plan with keeping BattleBots an international affair with the reduced field and smaller number of non-US teams in the long run?"
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have our international show. The show appears in 154 countries, which is great. And the idea and the goal is to have enough of a groundswell in a particular region, let's say Europe, or the Middle East or something, where there's enough people to warrant them, not as a country, but as a region, either borrowing our box or building their own box under our supervision to then do a traditional format deal. Like, you've seen 100 times, right? The Office was a UK show, it becomes an NBC show in America. And do that. create a hub. Let's say there's a European hub, so all the European teams, right, and all of them can come and compete, and then it shows on France, Germany, Switzerland, UK, blah 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 blah, right? All the broadcasters can pool their resources to do it together. Or maybe there's like a UK event that gets so popular that we do a partnership with them to hold a European championship there, and then the best of the best come over to, you know, to America for the World Championship. Maybe that happens in, you know, again, I think it's region by region, and it's either some sort of formatting deal, or it's a enterprising person who's got their own tournament that becomes a big deal and becomes, you know, a notable thing that, and then a partnership can be made to utilize that as a regional championship for the World Championship, something like that.
Okay.
I guess I can kind of, you know, considering what we just talked about with organizations and growing bigger and possible partnerships. Henry Strang on Discord. What's your opinion on the lower weight class scene, like the Beatles and the Ants and the Feathers, both within the context of looking at applications and also from the perspective of a longtime member in the community?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, everyone asks, how do you get into it? So we always say start in the smaller weight classes at the regional competitions. Go look at robotcombatevents.com and find something near you, close to you, and build for it. But then from a sort of proving ground / feeder league, it's fantastic because you can see smaller bots that kick ass can be test grounds for scaled up versions that can become much better. And we've seen that work and not work. Yes. But we'll give it a try. And then also people can try out weird, wacky ideas at the smaller weight class and scale them up. And then, you know, experience is worth its weight in gold. You get these teams of brilliant engineers, worked on the most amazing thing, SpaceX, whatever it is, right? And they come to BattleBots and they fail. It's not because they're bad engineers. They're probably some of the best engineers in the entire building, but because they just don't know what the sport is and the forces that are unleashed and where you have to put the armor because the horizontal blade going to hit you there, and how you have to do this and do that and do this and program your speed control and your brushless motors and all this, right?
You're talking about there.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. So that is, and then so that those people who come in like that, green, it's going to take them 3 cycles to get up to the level that the other folks have already gotten up to. And the people who have competed at the lower, you know, NHRL people who have just competed at the 30 pound, 50 pound, whatever pound it is for, you know, the whole year. They have how many regionals or whatever their qualifiers?
More than half a dozen.
You know, they have exactly. So they get a ton of experience that then just makes the BattleBot show so much better. And with Robo Games coming back, that'll become a value for all the boats are going to raise up, right?
Yes.
Yeah. BattleBots helps those guys. They help us. It's hopefully just a beautiful synergy and the audiences are happy because they can now go see a real live show in many places around the country.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's
shoot, there's Saskatoon, they've had kilobots up there forever. Robot Battles in Atlanta, it's been there forever. You have Motorama before Robot Wars, yeah. You got Motorama, you got Ruckus down here, Robot Ruckus down here. You have Cirque, you have what's the Texas one? They're everywhere. They're literally everywhere.
Robotica.
Robotica, yeah.
Robotica.
Is it Robotica?
Yeah.
Yep. Which has also been around forever. So yeah, it's nice that they're like not necessarily direct feeder leagues, but it's nice to be able to, you know,
there's a pool of knowledge there, isn't there?
Around the country and the world to kind of see, you know, where can you pull people from that, you know, like, hey, you know, like this would be a good team, maybe, you know, that could build a robot.
Those are going to become the way where the new stars are going to be born there, right? And then with the Las Vegas facility being permanent and us starting proving ground, new stars will be born there, but not everyone can come out to Vegas. Right. So people are stuck overseas. They're going to go to whatever is happening in the UK. John Finley's event. What's it called again?
Extreme Robots.
Extreme Robots. So right. go to Dave Hawkins' event, go to NHRL, go to all these things, and that people will pop out of there and show themselves as rising stars, and then eventually make it to the World Championship. Yeah. Will it ever get organized between everybody? Who knows? Right?
I mean, you'll need us. I mean, do you want to be that organizing body? It has to deal with everybody's. No. Exactly. You don't want to have to. You don't want to be the commissioner that everybody boos. It's
a thankless job and too much stress.
There you
go. Speaking of thankless jobs, I have the last question, which is really cutting to the bone, I think. It's from Wrist of Kings on YouTube. We've had the Riptide versus Captain Shredderator fight. It was big on big on the internet. Big on
even last year with Witch Doctor Minotaur is another good example.
Everything like that. So Wrist of Kings asks, what mechanisms exist to deal with unsportsmanlike conduct in BattleBots / is there anything, or will there be going forwards, I suppose?
Yes. So just Friday, a couple of days ago, or yesterday, or whenever it was, we had our first kickoff for the World Championship 8 rule meeting. So there's a lot of sort of tweaks to the current rule set based on learnings from season 7, World Championship 7. Some of which are these kind of, are you playing with your robot after you weighed in? You can't do that.
Yeah.
Things that we haven't put in the rules that need to be enumerated. There may even, we were discussing this concept of penalties, right? And we don't want to kick anyone out, especially with a team, because the narrative arc that goes has just a hole in it, and then how do you build that hole up again? But you can certainly apply penalties to teams that might be misbehaving. So we had a long discussion about that. So we might see some rules pop up around that. But I think most importantly is we've been encouraged to create a code of conduct. And Mike Jeffries, our match steward, has actually written it. He's
a fantastic choice.
Collaborating on it with Adam Wrigley from Shatter. And I think it'll become a document that'll just become one of the things you download and you say, yes, I will abide by the code of conduct. And it's ultimately just it's Greg Gibson. Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just what we said all season.
It's such an easy concept.
We want crazy fights. We want people to get emotional.
Yeah.
We don't want this thing to be vanilla.
It makes good TV.
Oh, yeah.
It really
makes
does.
Great
and
TV.
As it's shown online, it really gets the audience riled up and
gets people talking.
Yeah, definitely.
Every sport is going to have controversies like this, and then it's never going to go away. You're never going to rule your way into.
Greg, you a football guy? What's a catch?
Well, I think of the NBA and all the millions of dollars they spent on their referee center, where they actually have referees watching every game in Chicago or whatever it is, and then calling in and saying, no, that was a foul, right? They're doing everything they can to make it fair, right? And they really are. And audiences still think it's rigged, still think it's going on, there's shenanigans. And you're never going to get away from it. So we should all accept it. And builders are going to get hot and heated once in a while.
Absolutely.
And it's just going to be what it is. But I think code of content, exactly. Yeah.
In the moment of doing that fight, adrenaline is running so high that things are going to happen. And
Greg Gibson got mad at Mark DeVitz, who Mark DeVitz is the nicest dude
on the coolest person ever.
Right? Yeah.
He didn't know where his blade was. It's the same color as the floor.
Exactly right.
We were going to ask a question about from the BattleBots Facebook account, which was ask him about the muddy pants. How about we finish off with that as the final thing to lead off on? So
I'm unfamiliar with this.
There was a question on our post saying that we were going to be talking to Greg today from the BattleBots Facebook page. Ask him about the muddy pants was all it said.
I don't know what the muddy pants are.
I don't either.
That's what it said.
Was that my wife? Did you get on the muddy? Because my pants are always muddy.
Right. Okay.
I think they're muddy right now.
Oh God!
I'm always touching stuff and then kind of rubbing my butt, and then they get dirty. It's gives me shit about it. And so she went on Facebook. Do you have a secret account?
It's funny because I knew you ran the socials for BattleBots, and I'm like, is he?
I do, but I ignore the comments because they get sometimes they get nasty, and I just don't want to go into that.
Smart man.
It's a smart thing to do. Yeah, I mean that's a brilliant way to end it. Greg, thank you so much for your time. It is honestly a joy to have chatted with you, and thank you for spending 2 hours of your afternoon with us. And there's a larger thank you from just the community in general, really. Like, there's so many people, myself, Jevon, Steve, but there's so many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that have kind of drew inspiration from the show that you have ran.
The three of us may have never met each other without this show.
Literally. So thank you. It's awesome.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. And it really, we're just employees, so we're just doing the work to try to make it happen. And the builders are the ultimate people to thank because they're the ones kicking ass out there. But appreciate it. Thank you. And this was fun. We should get Trey on here next time and do it again.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
With all that said, I've been Sam64.
I've been Steve the American Killjoy.
I've been World of Woodrow.
I'm Mega Greg. See you later.
The three of us will see you next week for more BattleBots action. It's back.
Woo!
See you then.